Alongside Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the internet is filled with news of how governments around the world are seizing assets that belong to Russian billionaires, from yachts to jets to mansions. This is Dilber, a $700 million yacht belonging to Alisher Usmanov, a Russian billionaire allegedly linked to Kremlin. Germany seized this super yacht after the US government sanctioned the oligarch in early March in a campaign targeting Putin's allies. Spanish authorities seized the Valeria yacht, reportedly linked to a Russian oligarch and a former KGB agent, Sergei Chemezov, in the port of Barcelona, according to Reuters. The Italians seized Gennady Timchenko's yacht, who is also a Russian billionaire. Italy also seized $116 million worth of property that belongs to a Russian billionaire, Alexei Mordashov. Just when I was writing the script for this video, the US judge approved to seize 2 jets that belong to a Russian billionaire, Boris Abramovich. Overnight, as if Russian billionaires became enemy number 1 of the West. Not a single oligarch that linked to Putin has survived sanctions. It is probably the worst time to be a Russian billionaire. But why? Why are Western countries imposing personal sanctions on literally all Russian billionaires? Why are they seizing their mansions, jets, and yachts? That all has to do with how these people became billionaires in the first place. So here's a step-by-step guide on how to become a Russian billionaire. The path to becoming a billionaire in the US is clear. You become an entrepreneur. You start a business, grow it, and your stake in that business will put you on the Forbes billionaires list if the business is worth billions of dollars. That's how Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and other billionaires made their fortunes in the US. Of course, all of them have done some shady things, but overall, they have built impressive companies. But in order to become a billionaire in Russia, you don't go to business because the chances that you will become a billionaire are low. That's why you go to politics. The government is the most powerful and wealthiest entity in the country. So your job is to get your hands as close as possible to the treasury. Once your hands are on the treasury, you can spend that money however you want. Russia is not like the US, where government officials have to be accountable to the public. It's the public that's accountable to the government. So if someone sues you for mismanaging government expenditures, you don't have to worry about it because your position in the government doesn't just give you the money, but also power. One phone call to the judge and the judge will rule in your favor. So rule number 1 is you either get into politics to become a billionaire or need strong connections in the government to go to business. Without these connections, you're not going to go far or end up in jail. Russia, as we know it today, is a relatively new country. Until 1991, it was the Soviet Union, where capitalism was illegal. So there were no billionaires in the country. I mean, the top officials were the unofficial billionaires, but after the collapse of the Union, Russia had to move to capitalism literally overnight. That's when Russia began to have its first official billionaires. But they didn't become one by starting businesses or developing world-changing technologies. Boris Yeltsin, who was the president back then in 1996, was about to lose a re-election. So he turned to the bankers who managed government funds since Russia's financial system was still immature. So government funds were deposited in commercial banks and mostly managed by them. The plan was simple. The bankers would lend him $500 million with an annual interest rate of 150% and will take the government's shares in the biggest companies as collateral. If the government would not be able to pay back its loans within a year, the bankers would be able to keep the shares, which is exactly what happened. A year later, all of the 7 bankers who created this scheme became billionaires. Mikhail Khodorkovsky received a 45% majority stake in Yukos, Russia's largest oil and gas company back then. Berezovsky and Abramovich got Sibneft. Vladimir Potanin received a controlling stake in Norilsk Nickel, one of the world's largest nickel and palladium mining and smelting companies. Suddenly, companies that were built by the Soviet Union over decades changed hands. These 7 people became the owners of Russia's largest companies just because they were close allies of the former presidents. So, how do you become a billionaire in Russia? You become friends with top officials, preferably the presidents. Let's take a look at the current list of Russia's billionaires. Meet Arkady Rotenberg, who has a net worth of $2.2 billion. But until 1999, he was nobody. He wasn't a businessman, neither nor had any high government position, but he was Putin's longtime friend since the days when they used to practice judo together. After Putin's rise to power, this judo instructor suddenly became a successful businessman and joined the Forbes billionaires list. Coincidence? Maybe. Well, how about Gennady Timchenko, who has a net worth of almost $20 billion as of 2022. How do you think he built his fortune? Exactly. He became Putin's friend way before he became the president. So after Putin's inauguration, Timchenko's net worth skyrocketed. Or meet this guy, Igor Sechin. He's not officially a billionaire, but the guy owns a $490 million super yacht. You don't own a $500 million super yacht without having a few $1 billion at least. He's the CEO of the largest oil and gas company in Russia. And guess who appointed him to that position? Exactly, Putin. Because he was his security guard way before he became the president. Or Kirill Shamalov, the ex-husband of Katerina Tikhonova, Putin's daughter. So technically, he's the ex-son-in-law of the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. When you become the son-in-law of the most powerful man in Russia, you become Russia's youngest billionaire. Connections are the most important thing in making money in Russia. That's why there is a Russian proverb, do not have 100 rubles, but have 100 friends. The only problem with this way of becoming a billionaire is that your wealth doesn't really belong to you. I mean, it's officially yours, but it mostly belongs to the people who gave you the favors that enabled you to become a billionaire. For example, Oleg Deripaska became a billionaire as a result of massive illegal privatization after the collapse of the Soviet Union and became a close ally of the government. He finances the lavish lifestyle of many Russia's top officials, such as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Sergei Lavrov. Lavrov and his family always fly private, even on personal matters, using Deripaska's jets. Or a former deputy prime minister, Sergei Prikotka, who was spotted in Deripaska's yacht with a bunch of escorts. The strategy is simple. We make it possible for you to earn billions, but in return, you will share that wealth with us. But if you ever try to turn against us, we're going to get rid of you. Khodorkovsky, who challenged the government after building his net worth on behalf of the government, was arrested for 10 years. Berezovsky was forced to leave the country, and his life ended tragically, while Abramovich, who decided to bend the knee to the new Tsar, wasn't just left alone, but also generously rewarded. Another problem with this strategy is that they can always come for you the moment they dislike you. They can turn you into a prisoner in a blink of an eye, like the Magomedov brothers, the brothers who earned a few $1 billion through government connections and subsidies. But the moment they went against some government officials, they found themselves jailed and their assets seized. So if you ever become a Russian billionaire, spend as much money as you can, because you can lose it in a glimpse of an eye, and there won't be any judge that can save you. Spend your billions as if there is no tomorrow. Because if they don't seize them, the Americans will seize them. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the US and the EU started imposing sanctions on the people who were deeply connected to the government, and more specifically, to Putin. You see, these oligarchs made billions in Russia, but then took these billions outside Russia to protect their wealth, since in Europe and the US, they can at least turn to the courts to save their fortunes. But now, in an effort to put pressure on Putin, they are seizing their super yachts, mansions and jets and freezing their assets in Western banks. So, do you really want to become a Russian billionaire? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.